Sup, y'all? I am your host, Taylor Onion, and this is Hang Time, where we focus on amplifying the stories of women in sports. We are back this week with obscure sports and women's sports enthusiast and creator of the Women's Sports Year-Round poster you may have seen on TikTok. If you haven't seen it on TikTok, you got to go check it out. Arielle Schmitt. Arielle, welcome. Let's get some hang time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to chat.
Absolutely. Me as well. So you've I'll do some background here. You've amassed over like 230,000 followers across your platforms. You started talking about just some kind of obscure or sporting events that not everybody is talking about or focused on. Turns out there are actually a lot of people who are interested in hearing those things. And so again, you kind of refer to it as obscure sports. The first video I saw of yours was about the Women's Professional Baseball League, which is coming this August. And you were talking about how they're going to be competing in Springfield, Illinois, which is, I won't go through your whole video, but you shared it's kind of random, but it's actually not random.
Yeah.
So for folks listening, go check that video out and you'll know more of what we're talking about there. But what got you started in wanting to create this kind of content?
Yeah. Well, I find it interesting to hear when like any of my videos came across someone's desk. And so it's kind of interesting that that's like the first one that came across your desk. And I'm really excited about the Women's Professional Baseball League. Like, I just think we're living in such a like unique time in women's sports to be able to like watch these leagues like start from the beginning. And so I'm just excited to watch that as it takes off. But what really got me started, I couldn't even tell you if it was 3 or 4 years ago, but it was ocean rowing. I did not know that that was a thing that people did, period. And I saw a video like the day before. It was, there's 4 women and they were rowing a boat from California to Hawaii to try to break a world record. And I saw one of their videos like pop up on TikTok where she's talking about it. And I'm somebody that's kind of, I wasn't talking a lot about niche sports on TikTok, but I've always loved, like always like been fond of them. And to find out there's something that I like had no idea about kind of blew my mind. And then she shared this like stat about how they go about doing this. And there's like 4 women, 2 are rowing at all times. And they row 2 hours on, 2 hours off. So everyone's rowing 12 hours a day. And then they weren't sleeping for more than like an hour and a half at a time. And it literally blew. It blew. I was like, how long can they possibly do this? So then and no concept of how long it takes someone to row across an ocean. I was like, so what, they do this for a week? Like, how can anyone do it for longer than that? And I look up what the record was at the time, and it was something at 35 days. And I'm like, they do this for a month, and just blew my mind. So I made a video about it. And I think I had 3,000 followers at the time. And I like, closed down my phone, went and did other stuff, and came back and had like 6,000 followers. And I was like, what's going on here? And it was just like, and I felt like since they had just set out to do this, there was like 30-ish days of like, I know I'm going to be obsessing about this, which just meant like following a tracker across the ocean. But turns out like, a couple million people on the internet were also ready to be obsessed with it. And that's like what we collectively did for about a month, following these women as they were trying to break a world record. And it was, it felt like introducing ocean rowing to the US, because it's something that is more well known in Europe, and maybe it was more well known here than I had realized. But for me and whoever else was following along, we're just like, what is this and what is happening? And we were obsessed for a month or so, and that's kind of what started everything.
So you mentioned as you got started in this, you weren't necessarily looking for niche sports, but as you kind of moved into it, it seems like that's been the sweet spot with an ultra marathon or with ocean rowing or whatever it is. Is there something like, are you driven by your own curiosity, or now are you like, what qualifies obscure sports for you?
I mean, essentially driven by like curiosity. If I had to like define it, I think sports that like don't have like a major league structure to them, like the defined WNBA season. But if you looked at a lot of sports have structure in like the NCAA, like fencing and rowing and stuff like that. But as soon as you get out of that, it seems like you only hear about them every 4 years at the Olympics. And I know there is more structure in there, but it just doesn't seem as defined in like a league way that makes it like easy to follow.
I think it's come a long way in the last few years, but there's still so much. To your point, the fencing that you just mentioned. So this was the first year that the NCAA offered, I think it was the women's team
Hmm.
event, and Notre Dame won that. I think I saw that you were in attendance for at
Yeah.
least a portion of that event. That's been one of their kind of emerging or developing sports over the last few years. What was it like to be at that in person?
Oh, it was so cool. Like, the thing about, like, that, like, offered up more opportunities for women's sports, which I didn't realize. So it was, like, previously, it was combined, like, men and women competed. It was just there was a team winner, and I think Notre Dame has won that a number of times, so they are well known for their, like, fencing program. But you got these other schools were really competitive when it was an overall team sport, but they only had women collecting like, they didn't have anybody collecting points on the men's side of it. So even though they were still, like, able to finish in the top 10 last year, that was without having any men compete. And so it opened up more opportunities for some schools that only had women's programs to be able to, like, be competitive, like, as the team sport. And so it was really cool since it was at Notre Dame this year. And then there's kind of a lot going on at these, like, meets. There's, like, there's three different types of fencing going on. And as they were coming up on the match that would have been the winning match, all of a sudden, like, everybody kind of got corralled over to this one area. And then as soon as she finished, it was just like everybody, like, lost their mind. And it was cool to, like, just be there, be in the room when it happened.
Is there anything that's more fencing? I feel like is something that comes up. We were just talking about like with the Olympics, it comes up every 4 years. It's happening in college. It's growing obviously in college as well. Is there anything that's more mainstream? Like the way you just described that, I'm thinking of like a tennis match. Would you equate it to that, where there's individuals competing, but you could win the overall team prize? Or like what would you compare the experience of watching fencing to?
No, I have not been to anything that that was like fencing. Fencing was so far out of, like, this world, out of what I'm used to, that, like, it was literally just like, I think I happened to run in this was very great. I happened to run into, like, my cousin while I was there, and I was like, "What are you guys doing here?" And they're like, "We saw these we're just, like, trying out watching new sports." And, like, I live near Notre Dame, so you do have access to, like, a lot of random sports. And, like, I think everybody should go to, like, a swim meet and, like, a fencing match or duel if they have one around, because there was nothing like it. Like, these it's really fast paced, and then, like, sometimes when somebody wins a point or wins a duel or whatever, they, like, have this guttural scream that they would do. And, like, the first time it happened, my wife and I are watching, we're both just like, "What is happening here?" There
Right.
was there was nothing quite like it. Yeah, there was nothing quite like it. It was, yeah, it was cool to be a part of and cool to be around, but I haven't experienced anything like it. And so it's one of those, like, now I know I need to go to, like, more different sports because I can't even compare it to anything else that I've been to before.
Why do you think people are so interested in I feel like, again, and maybe it's a media attention thing, but obviously there's the basics, right? Like the footballs, basketballs, even volleyball has started to grow in recent years, baseball. But why do you think there's such an audience? Again, like the following that you've got, and even running into your cousin at the fencing where they're like, yeah, we just kind of wanted to check it out. Like, why do you think people are so interested in discovering these lesser known sports?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly, but something I do see, like, over and over again in the comments section, in particular when I kind of talk about ocean rowing or ultra marathons, it's like people are like, "I'm not a sports person, but I'm into this." And I think that, like, sports culture has a reputation. And I mean, I kind of forget, like, I mostly go to women's sports, and then sometimes I'll go to, like, a men's sporting event, and I was like, "Oh, the culture here is really different just between those two." Not to mention that if you go down to, like, niche sports, I just think it provides a different kind of culture and experience that maybe people are looking for that don't fit into, like, the football watching culture of it.
Interesting. I'm
Yeah.
always so curious about people's motivations on some of that stuff.
Yeah, but it
So
is interesting because, like, at fencing, I don't know how many, people that weren't connected to the fencing world were there.
that
I
showed up to attend.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah,
probably not a ton. Like, there's a couple of people that wandered in basically, but
sure.
there weren't a ton. And so I think there's just unlimited like growth for people to like be able to get interested and invested in these sports.
We've seen, obviously, how media attention and investment can help women's sports grow. You have taken the time to build out this entire calendar, the women's sports kind of year-round sports calendar. What prompted you to want to create that?
Oh, that was it is something that has been, like, living in my brain for a while. The PWHL, Professional Women's Hockey League, this is its 3rd season. It's in its 3rd season right now, and it wasn't even, like, at the beginning of its 1st season that I realized this. There was somewhere in the middle where I was like, "Wait a minute." When that got added, that officially made us have women's sports year-round, and, like, just this circle symbol that just, like, was in my brain from the beginning, and at some point, I needed to, like, get it out of my brain and just, like, put it down on paper, and I know this is a podcast, but I do have I'm gonna this was, like, the first one I ever sketched, and I just,
Amazing. We've
like
got a visual element. Yeah,
yeah, I
show
just
it.
had to, like, get it out of my brain, and then I kind of liked where it was heading, and then I recorded one, and that video just did really well, and people were just really excited about that. I don't know if nobody else not like nobody else realized it, but, like, just excited that there were so many women's sports available now, and, like, this is this whole different, you know, world we're living in or coming into where we have a lot of professional women's sports.
So for the folks who are listening only, Arielle just showed the first sketch that she had of the women's sports year-round calendar, which is super cool. If you're only listening, you have to go check out on social media because I'll clip that and make sure that we have a an image of it at least on socials there as well. But once you figured out the PWHL and that kind of completed the circle, if you will, what research went
Mhm.
into building it? You mentioned the circle was kind of in your brain from the beginning. Like, what made you think through design elements? What was your process like there?
It was, you know, I know, like, you create content as well. You never know, like, when a video is going to do well or not, and that video started to do well, and it was the first time that I'd ever seen in the comments people be like, "I want to, like, buy this." And I was just like, "Okay, that's interesting, and I feel like if I'm going to do this, then I want to do it quickly." And so I kind of, like, this is the first time, like, I pushed myself to create this thing really fast. Like, I think I basically took all the free time I had in, like, a day and a half and laid it out on the computer. I had done most of the research already, just looking up, leagues, but in the comment section, people were suggesting more leagues. And so I was looking up every league and just trying to find when their season was. And there were some sports that or some leagues I wanted to include, but it's like I could not figure out when their season was because some of these are like what I'd call emerging leagues, like they're just getting going. And so they just might not have had it published yet for 2026. And so there are some leagues that like didn't get included in it that I wanted to, but it was like basically it was everything I could find within like a 2-day time period. And then I had to just move on to like designing it and laying it out. And I just pushed to do it as quickly as possible in like that 2-day time. And it was like as soon as I finished it, my wife proofread it while I turned around and figured out how to do like a website and just like everything was as quick as possible, basically. But yeah, it was just looking up every league I could. The comment section helped a lot because people were suggesting a number of leagues that I had like misplaced, and I just got everybody included that I could.
I was gonna ask, are people still commenting? Are you still learning about new leagues that you didn't know about, or you feel like you have a pretty good handle on what exists now?
I think I have a pretty good handle on what exists now. Um, yeah, there weren't too many that were. There were a couple that were surprising. I can't think off the top of my head. There were a couple that were surprising, and then some that just like didn't have a lot of information yet. But it just says that there's a lot going on in women's sports, so I think
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Are there, in your research for that, and maybe even in the comments, are there times of the year that are way more stacked in terms of what's happening than people even realized?
You know, I'm not sure about what people's perception of it was, but I know that I it confirmed for me that that why I'm so busy in the summer, which is like because as soon as you add the outdoor sports, it takes off in the summer. And that's like the busy time for my 9 to 5 too. So it's like, oh, that's why I'm always stressed out in the summer because I want to like talk about everything going on in the sports world. And there is just so much more going on in the summertime.
Where do you feel like we're seeing the most momentum in women's sports right now?
Uh I mean, I have to say, I think volleyball is like of the more well-known sports, that's the one that's gaining a lot of traction. I can see that gaining a lot of traction over the next couple of years because they seem to really have like streaming figured out and like there's kind of a nice compact way to be able to like communicate that sport, you know?
Mhm.
But outside of that, I think that there's going to be a lot of growth in like ultra running and these ultra marathons. The more that I like tune in, I love a sport that lasts like a week apparently. And
You're in it for the long haul.
yeah, exactly. I want something that I can tuck into for at least a week. And the way that they cover these, it's very kind of like it feels a little like bootstrap, but like it's getting so much better every year. And I keep hearing over and over again, like I'm not necessarily like in that world, like I'm not a runner, but I observe everything that's going on. And the more I sit on these like live streams, it's like everyone there is talking about like the women's race and the women's competitors in it. And so I feel like there's a lot of momentum on like the women's race side of it. So I think ultra running is going to have a big moment in the next couple of years because you just keep having these people that are, I think there's more money coming into it. And so
Mm.
as more women can focus on just running, then I think you're just going to get like more and more like faster times and records beaten and stuff like that.
When you say ultra running, is there so, like, we know a marathon is 26.2. Is there a distance, or is it hours, or what is the is it all the things?
It's insane is what it is. There are probably a handful of races that are kind of considered like this again, like there's no league structure to it. So I also could be if anybody is in ultra running and wants to describe it better, that feel free. But there's a handful of races that are kind of considered like the big races of the year. One being the like Hard Rock 100, I think is one of them. So like 100-mile races are kind of
I
this
guess.
nice,
Okay.
yeah, like nice distance that is like seems to be a really competitive distance. And then there's also a lot of competition in like the 250-mile race category. And there are like a handful of it's insane, but there's like a handful of
Right.
US runners that are like these up and coming that there's just going to be a lot of competition on the women's side that I think people are like really excited to see. Like two of the top US competitors ran randomly met already this year in a competition. And so everybody had their eyes on it. They're like, "Oh, these two weren't going to meet until like this race down the road, but they ended up meeting earlier in the year and like who came out on top." And it's like, 100-mile race or whatever, and it's insane.
It's too long. That's too many miles.
It is. I think
I'm
it's just yeah.
That's wild. How do they do it? I mean, they run presumably a certain amount per day, and then they restart the
No,
next day
they run
through the night?
for 60 hours. Yeah. Yeah, that's these are the sports that just like have me like hooked because of that. Like they might sleep for a couple minutes. Like they can sleep as much as they want, but the ones that
Right.
want to like win the race, they know they're not going to get a chance to. So, yeah, no, they'll run for
That's
60 hours and they'll just keep running.
That's wild. I cap out. I mean, I guess I've done 5Ks, but I'm thinking like a mile is a lot
Yeah.
these days. To do 100 of that feels bananas to me.
Yeah, yeah. It
That's
I
nuts.
can't comprehend it. And then
Yeah.
that's kind of the shorter of ultra marathons. They have these there's like a really well known it's the Cocodona 250 and like that's one that there was all this talk because it had a strong women's class in it last year and they're like who's going to come out on top of that one. And so that's another one that, this is where there's not a lot of structure and so it's like everyone's trying to look at like who has signed up for these and where are these top competitors going to meet at and like
Right.
what races we need to pay attention to and I find all of that research and whatnot fun.
That's so crazy. I just learned something something new right now. So
It's crazy.
it is crazy. Before we kind of shift into the last couple of questions I have for you. So you mentioned your 9 to 5. So being a creator and talking about obscure sports and doing all this research and creating the calendar is not your full-time job. How do you balance maybe what is your full-time job and how do you
Yeah.
balance those two things or
Yeah.
three things?
Yeah. I'm a mortgage lender. I was in graphic design and marketing for like most of my career and then I kind of wanted to separate the creative from the like 9 to 5.
Mm,
And so then I mid-pandemic did a big career shift, and it really has provided, like, this is what I do 9 to 5. And then that's when I then started posting on TikTok and started like pursuing this whole other side of things. And so it has worked out that way. But yeah, I mean, it's a flexible job, but I just, I basically work all day and then do videos all night.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's the balance. Yeah.
We love when there's more free time to do creative things.
Yeah, exactly. It gives more
That's awesome.
headspace to do it and more free time to do it. So, yeah.
Love it. I love it. All right. So last couple of questions here. One is, what is one women's sporting event that people should be paying attention to this year? Maybe what are you most excited for this year with women's sports?
I think I'm most excited for the Women's Professional Baseball League, since it's like the first season of it and the first year of it, and to see that start up. And it's not that I'm even like baseball isn't necessarily my biggest like sport, but I think it's just such a unique time to be able to watch these leagues start, that's the one I'm most excited about this year. I
Okay.
don't think anyone should miss it.
I think it's going to be pretty exciting. And again, if you've not seen the video that Arielle put out, you got to go check it out. She's talking about the whole history of the location of why they're hosting in Springfield, Illinois, and some of the history behind the stadium specific to women's baseball, which is why they chose that. So if you haven't seen it, got to go check it out. All right, last question here. If you could get some hang time with any woman in sports, who would it be and why?
Oh, boy. Let me think. I think I would I think I would want to hang out with, if it's hang time and it's just time to like hang out, I think it would be Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird,
Uh,
because that last year, 2 years ago, they did like an alt cast of some NCAA like championship. I don't know if it was a championship game or just tournament games. And they have like played basketball. They've been in it together for so long that if I could like be a fly on the wall, hang out in the room, it would be with those two.
I would like to be invited to that
Yeah.
hang time. I
Yeah.
feel like that would be a fun one.
Yeah.
All right, where can they support you, follow you, get involved, find the poster, any of those things?
I am Schmittly on everything, at Schmittly. And the poster isn't stocked right now.
Ooh.
Hopefully
Okay.
I'm planning on doing a restock, updating everything and doing a restock next couple months. And yeah, we'll see where it goes from there. There's hopefully some
Yeah.
exciting things happening with it in the future, but we'll see.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good. Awesome. Well, Arielle, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule, your two-sided schedule, the
Yes.
mortgage lender and the creator side, to get some hang time today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, listeners, we will see you back actually next week. And until then, you can follow along at HangTimeP0D on socials and on YouTube. Check out our website as well. It's hangtimep0d.com. We'll see you next time.